Hi guys, it's Blackie. Okay, in a recent video I did a discussion on brass revolvers for use in percussion. And I got several people said, what about stainless? Have you tried any stainless guns? Okay, I've had limited experience with stainless. I've had a good friend that had a lot of experience with stainless. So let me talk a little bit and let's clear up some myths. And this is a Ruger Old Army in stainless. So let's talk about this. First, stainless steel does rust. It is extremely rust resistant, but it is not completely, utterly rust proof. So if you're looking for a percussion gun, but man, I don't want to have to clean the thing, can I just do like a modern, shoot it and throw it and I can use it next month? No. You don't get off that easy. If you want a percussion gun that you ain't got to shoot, get a cartridge conversion and use smokeless powder into cartridge conversions. That's the only way you're doing it. You're still going to have to eventually clean it like a modern gun, but it is extremely rust resistant. But now, using it in the field as a hunting gun, that's one of the reasons that Ruger brought out this gun in it for guys that wanted a hunting gun. It is the last Dragoon, and I will cover this in an upcoming video. But it's a modern gun that shoots percussion black powder loads. Okay, but it's still stainless steel, a gun alloy actually. It does get dirty. It will eventually rust. Not soon, not tomorrow, but it does. In the field, as a field gun, yes, it would have distinct advantage because I could shoot it and have more leeway before I had to clean it, a day at the most. But it gave me more opportunity to be able to shoot and then not immediately have to clean it within a matter of hours. The experience that I had with the stainless steel was actually a good friend of mine many years ago named Steve. And Stephen had a stainless steel Remington 58. He also had a stainless steel 51 Navy and a stainless steel 1860 Army. Now where he got those two, I don't know. This was back in the 80s, and there were companies that came on the scene, made guns, imported guns, whatever, for a couple of years, and they were gone. And they're not the big names that you know today, but like Lyman imported their own guns. Colt had their guns. There was Western Arms. There was Allen Arms. There was a lot of companies that did, and trying to get a little niche. You saw some nickel-plated guns. You saw a couple of stainless steel guns. And they worked to a point. Now you got to understand, in the early 80s, when stainless steel guns were becoming much more common than they had been in 1911s and in modern revolvers and things. Stainless steel was taking the place of what nickel had been, because when you look back at a lot of the original guns, back during the day of the cap and ball era and etc., there were nickel-plated guns. It was a much higher option, but it gave you resistance to the corrosion, so you didn't have to clean it as much. And that was a gun that was going to be carried a lot. The military didn't do it. Now you're going to have officers that may have got nickel-plated guns for their own personal weapons, but the military didn't do it because of the cost. It just added so much to the cost. And it was nickel-plated or even silver-plated. I personally have seen a 51 Navy that was silver-plated. It didn't leave the Colt factory that way, but it was later, by some gunsmiths, silver-plated. And it had fancy embellishment and engraving in it. And usually the person that could afford the embellishment could afford the nickel-plated or whatever, because that's going to be carry a whole lot, shoot very little. This wasn't a working man's gun. It may have been an officer's gun. It may have been a sheriff or something, or a marshal, or someone who wanted a flashy gun, you know, to look important. But in real life, they were not as much field guns as they were city guns or anything else. Now when Ruger brought out the stainless steel gun, this was a big innovation, because it gave you a gun that you could carry in the field a lot and had very little maintenance in the field to protect it. It had a modern coil spring in it. It had modern components, so it didn't break easy like the Colt design. And it's really not a copy of a Remington Old Army. It's actually a Whitney revolver, and that dead giveaway. Like recently, Mike Bellevue did a one on the Ruger, and he talked about that, and I fully agree. That's a Whitney connection. And I did a video talking about one of the greatest gun designers you never heard of, the Beals guy who created the Whitney revolver. He created the Remington revolver. He seemed to create all the great rivals of Colt. Were all made by the same, designed by the same guy, Beals. You know, but you never heard of them, but you've heard of the Remington, you've heard of the Whitney, you've heard of the Spiller and Burr, and all of those were his designs, basically. Well, the Ruger is his design right there. That's that loading lever set. And in a modern twist on it, let's put it into modern materials. And so stainless is a good material to have. Disadvantage, it's shiny. It's not shiny enough to pass for nickel. And I have seen a Ruger polished by an individual. He was a jeweler, and so he had all the rouges and the tools and everything for doing jewelry. And he polished his stainless steel Ruger up to where it looked like it was nickel plated or silver plated. It was so shiny. And he put really pretty ivory grips on it. Oh, it was snazzy. But again, it was a show a lot, carry very little gun. I think that gun stayed at the house up in the display case far more than it went to the field. Whenever he went to the field, he was like me. He toted just an old working gun. So, what do I think about stainless? If you can afford that model, in modern times today, yeah, it would be a distinct advantage, because it would give you much more resistance in the field of corrosion. Stainless steel today is a much more refined product than we had in the 80s. So they've worked out what was called galling. And that's what you had a lot of problem with the early 1911s and automatic pistols in it, was because the sliding slides and frames would gall or bind to get within each other. And in a percussion revolver, the problem was going down the barrel. The rifling was not be smooth because of galling when they were cutting it. And so it would, quite often they had rough bores early on. Now today they fixed that, and all the Rugers and things that I've seen have nice smooth between the lands and grooves, and so they shoot very well. It has the disadvantage of being shiny, and that can be hard to aim. I like black or dark sights, and any kind of nickel plated or shiny sights is hard to see in bright sunlight. You bring it up and it's just shiny. You know, is this shiny or that shiny? And as you can see, the Ruger gets around that by having dark sights. Now this gun is missing its actual front sight. This little nub post up here that the previous owner put onto it, and the gun shoots about 24 inches high at 15 yards. We've got another front sight for it that's going to be installed. But the dark sight picture makes it much more usable. And the Rugers all have that satin look to them, kind of like nickel, you know, and so a nickel appearance. I'm okay with that. As a hunting gun, I don't want it too shiny. It spooks game. They can see it farther out. That's the reason militaries don't use anything shiny like that. So dull is better. But for bunny busting, walking around the edges of the field where, you know, he's going to see or smell you way out there and you're looking for a stationary target, they're perfectly fine. Is there any special considerations you should have with the stainless steel gun? You can take the wooden grips off and hose it out. I've heard that. Yeah, but the springs inside of it are not stainless steel. The springs that power it are still a carbon-based steel and will rust. So take the grips off, spray it down, clean it out, spray it in with oils and stuff, make sure everything's good and old, and put the grips back on. Yeah, you can do that. You're still going to need lubrication on the cylinder axis pin. You're still going to need lubrication in the bore, because just because it's modern stainless does not mean that bore does not want to gall when you fire it. Yes, the rifling is now smooth, but what I'm talking about is, I've mentioned many times in my cap and ball revolver videos talking about shooting the bore wet, lubricating the bore before you start shooting, so that that ball comes onto a lubricated set of riflings so it doesn't start leading. because that ball is coming under a great deal of pressure. It's very soft, and when it hits and it starts to kind of smear down that barrel and engraves in the rifling, you don't want it to act like bubble gum and start smearing a little, because if it does that, the next round hits it, the next round hits it, the next round. After a while, it's just a wad of lead, and I don't like to have to remove leading. And so with the stainless, you'd still want to shoot them wet. You'd still want to lubricate the barrels. And so that, in short, is Blackie's 2 cents on stainless steel guns for percussion revolvers. Yes, that'd be a very viable one today. And if you can find one that you can afford and you like, absolutely. If it's a very old gun, like 20 or 30 years old, look at the rifling. If it looks like heavy chatter marks going down between the lands and grooves, I'm not going to say it can't be accurate, but you're going to have to address that. And the early ones that I saw, there were some in the early days that had those bad chatter marks in the rifling. All the Rugers are Cadillacs. If you want a stainless steel ultra modern gun, go get a Ruger. That is the Dragoon of choice. That is the hunting gun of choice. It's got all the modern features in it, and it's going to solve a lot of the old time problems. Now, if you're an old guy like me and you like the nostalgia, and you find you a 51, an 1860 Army, or perhaps a 58 Remington in stainless, yeah, go for it. You can always shine it up, make it look like nickel. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.